dude?
I'm doing well, man. Nice recovery. I went to bed last night or yesterday afternoon about 2 and crashed. It was one of the greatest naps I've had in a long time.
But you're back at it. You're back in the office already,
I
huh?
am. I didn't get any work done this week, so
Yeah, well, yeah, I feel that.
I've got a bunch of emails that piled up on. That's what I'm up to right now.
What are you gonna relax this weekend, or what are you doing?
Playing catch up.
How many emails are in that inbox?
Oh, dude, 47,870 unreads as of right now. Now, those are not. Now, in fairness, those are not from this week. So, but that's what my unread count right now is. But I don't know. I get a couple. But I look at between flying and FreightWaves, not my personal account, which is mostly spam at this point. I get probably 600 to 800 emails a day. And if you look at ones that are actually pertinent to me, there's probably 20. A lot of it's junk mail. So when we started FreightWaves, I was the original IT person, because that's what you do when you're a founder. And so I set up all the accounts, and somehow as we scaled, I ended up on 13,000 email spam lists. Because my inbox became unfunctional. Like I literally could not handle all the inbound. And so I ran this tool called Clean Email, and it comes back and counts all of the distribution lists you're on. It came out over 13,000. So, and at first it was like, which ones do you want to unsubscribe to? So I was looking at it. I was like through the first part of the A's, and I was like, screw it, click, delete everything. And I unsubscribed to every single newsletter. So now it's far more manageable, but I still get a lot of spam.
You get a lot of spam, but you probably get a lot of nice cold outreach too. I'm assuming
tons of outreach. I mean, the problem being a media company, just having a public profile, is that you get put on so many email distribution lists because companies, whenever they do a press release or when they do marketing, they want you to see it. It just doesn't work. And so the problem that I got is that I can't just change I can't change my email and not go check out the inbox, because I have a lot of clients and friends that I work with that have my old email. So it's not like I can make sort of an irreversible change, if you will.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have, I guess. A lot of people are interested in getting in touch with you.
I tell people Twitter is the easiest way to get me. I mean, LinkedIn's also dysfunctional, right? So, I mean, I had to lock down my LinkedIn account.
you haven't even accepted me on LinkedIn. It's kind of
because I don't ever log into LinkedIn, and I don't look at the invites. So, I know it's sort of sad, but Twitter, if you want to reach me, Twitter is the best way to reach me, and I respond to 90% of my Twitter inbounds. Like as long as you're not like some super attractive women that is like would never reach out to me cold under any circumstances, then I will respond to you. So I get a lot of those.
Yeah, recently there's a lot of them
with good intentions. So
hey, the chicks are into the freight media people, man. Seriously,
that must be it. That's the serious people of freight they want to reach out to.
Craig, where are you at right now?
I'm in the flying offices. So we have 2 offices downtown. One is flying, and it's more of a traditional office. It has more windows and stuff, and then FreightWaves. So I'm in the flying office today. I've got a lot of flying stuff to catch up on that I haven't done. So, but it's story of my life.
I jacked a bunch of flying magazines out from backstage, and
good.
I have a stack of them here now. Maybe I'll get around to subscribing. But I went through them all on the plane, man. Like first of all, the fields. I mean, you guys are really pushing that now, huh? Like, are you doing any marketing anywhere besides your own places?
No, we're doing it ourselves. I mean, there's no point. I appreciate you taking that. That's what we put them out there for. So the flying team came to FreightWaves because I wanted them to see what a real event was, because we may do something in aviation, and so they were like, we need to have magazines, because there were actually people in the hallway. There is this very small crossover audience that I have between aviation and supply chain. Like it's small, it's not a huge amount of people, but there is people that are interested in aviation as well as supply chain. So they sought out the flying, they saw the flying logo and started talking to them. So we figured they wanted to drop off some magazines. So they're there for you guys to take. I mean, I'm glad you did. So
I think Paul's Starbucks Wi-Fi isn't very good. Paul, your Wi-Fi sucks, bro.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Christian. I know, dude. I'm using a hotspot. Christian's been subscribed to Flying Magazine long.
Sorry, did I get
He
asked the
gets
question?
those
Just got
every
cut out.
month.
Paul, shut up. Hey, I have a question. All right, events. Obviously, we were just at one of your events. I think you said during the I don't know if we were talking about this privately or publicly or whatever, but events used to be a kind of a bigger slice of the FreightWaves business, and software has kind of overtaken that. That was probably on purpose. How do you see events working in long term, and how do you view events as part of the future of flying? And how do you think about what, like, I'm asking you a bunch of questions. You can go however you want.
yeah. So
I'll
like
just leave it there. Go.
Yeah. So back in 2019, events were half the revenue of FreightWaves. So like we did 11 million in revenue in 2019, and 5.5 million of that was in physical events. And so 2 events we held, one in Atlanta and one in Chicago. Like McCormick was a location for our Chicago event. And so when you looked at that, when COVID hit, we were like, well, we're going to lose half our revenue. And so we leaned into virtual and TV, and that's where FreightWaves TV sort of came out, that the virtual events we did. And that was amazing. Like for 2 years, that was a highly profitable growing business. The problem in a post-COVID environment is that people are not sitting in front of a TV watching events. I mean, for that early part of the cycle of that COVID sort of cycle is like, it wasn't a lot of creator. I think actually the creator economy that you see now, you guys included, a lot of that came out of the sort of COVID sort of isolation. We all were there. And, Paul may have some thoughts here too. But so we, for a while, were sort of the place to get information and sort of community. And then when people went back in the office, we were no longer the only place to get information. So our virtual events started to really sort of take a big hit. And the budgets for advertising or sponsorships used to be, they would allocate budgets towards virtual, and now it's gone back to physical. So physical events are important for us. The physical event business will do about 10 million in revenue, give or take $1 million, depending on how it all sort of shapes up. And so approximately 10 million in revenue for physical events. That is about a little bit less than a quarter of FreightWaves revenue today.
One quarter. So it's literally half.
No, it's the revenue is doubled.
Well, I mean, as a relative percentage, it's halved. Yeah.
Of the share of the revenue, it is a smaller share of the company than what it was pre-COVID.
Was that like, that just kind of happened? That was a result of kind of the macro environment around us and I don't mean that macroeconomic in a sense, just like just what happened in terms of COVID and all that stuff. But software obviously has exploded, and you guys have been pushing that, and you unveiled a bunch of stuff at F3 that was cool, like this new interface and stuff like that. And I mean, software, at the end of the day, software is the more valuable quote unquote business. And so you guys are really obviously investing in that heavily. How, like, long-term events you're going to do more, you're going to do less, you're going to do the same? Like, how do you view events like going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we've looked at a lot of ways to do different sort of smaller events. The problem is the economics become pretty challenging when you go small. Like events are a scale. There's 2 ways to do events. One is more intimate experiences where you're either doing what I call low production, where you don't spend a lot of money in production. And you're like, hey, we're going to keep this lean and mean. We're going to invite 50 or 100 people to come to an event. You can do it that way. You can get a bigger scale event, maybe 200 or 300 people. and you still keep production costs low, and you keep your costs, and you're trying to attract enough people, and then you go big scale. The important thing for us is we think that the quality of the production is really important. So it's every piece of the experience is really important, and it reflects on our brand. And so for us, it's hard for us to pull off. I mean, if you look at the cost of F3, just in terms of audio visual production, and you guys got to experience this firsthand, that's a $1.2 million cost to put on the LED screens, to have if you went in the back behind the
Dude, it's crazy. It was insane back there. It was insane.
You have about 40 or 50 people that are behind the wall.
Yeah.
That are coordinating all of the logistics of keeping it on. And these are union folks that you're paying union wages and stuff.
What's that company? Freeman?
Freeman, yeah. So Freeman's like, they do the Super Bowl, they do the Oscars. They're very expensive. But they can handle the cadence requirements. We've gone through a lot of event companies. They just couldn't handle it. Freeman themselves told us that we have the highest cadence in terms of the speed of which we move of any event they put on. And that they're comparing that to the Super Bowl and the Oscars. And so our requirements for intensity, cadence, streaming the event, the bandwidth, all of that puts an enormous amount of pressure on the team. And so we have to have somebody who can handle that level of professionalism. So for us to do it at that level, it requires a pretty substantial budget to do it. So we do large scale events. We've certainly talked about doing smaller events. The problem is, again, you end up sacrificing some of the sort of elements that make our event special, we think. And so would we add a third event or a fourth event? Possibly, very topical, but it would be a different style event.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't remember seeing a single issue switching between any of the presentations, and they were, especially the rapid demos, was like super smooth. And
well, dude, you know what's interesting about how they do that backstage? They have these trays, right, that have all the wires coming into it, all the dongles. They have like 1 million dongles back there, and they're like, they put your thing on the tray, they bring it out, and they literally, two people. They have a person who like carries the wires to make sure the guy in the front doesn't trip, who's carrying the tray, because there's the big long stack of wires. And so I was talking to them backstage, and they were like, yeah, I'm the wire guy. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, I literally just carry the wires to make sure this guy doesn't trip. That's it. He's like, that's my only job. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, Freeman's done an amazing job. We've used 2 other, I think, production companies in our past, and there's always issues when you're running that level of speed. And like, if you're doing a traditional event, and there are far cheaper ways to do it. I mean, you can have you can go into a hotel ballroom and have a projector screen, and you run everything on sort of hour-long sessions, and you create a panel of, say, now I've seen panels in logistics at like TIA where there's 8 people sitting on a panel and they get like 2 minutes, and you're like, first of all, it has to be miserable for a speaker, because you're just sitting up there and you're providing one soundbite. It kind of is miserable for the audience because you don't get any depth. Like, you're listening to someone repeat. What Paul said is a really interesting thought, and I agree with Reed, but let me do my tiny spin on it. It sucks. And so for us, the speed of which we operate, the times of which we operate, and the fact that we don't do panels, but we still want to have a lot of speakers that are on stage, means that we have this really crunch schedule that requires a lot of intensity. And that is a exponentially more expensive production than what a traditional event would be. One of the other things we've found is we've gone to these convention centers, like in Arkansas. We tripped the power in Arkansas, like the actual facilities power tripped because of all the LEDs that we plugged in. So that was a problem. In Atlanta, they had to upgrade their Wi-Fi bandwidth to handle it, because you're streaming the event, plus people in the audience are streaming the event in the audience, plus all of the technology that's out there. People are streaming stuff. And so it's a pretty intense experience. One of the nice things about Chattanooga is, it's Reed, you're right. Yes, I picked it because it's my hometown. But one of the features about Chattanooga is it has the fastest internet in the United States. And so you can get 25 gig to your house. And so they're able to we're able to get amazing bandwidth in that facility, and that isn't a problem. Atlanta, we're going back in June of next year. The city of Atlanta is spending $500,000 to bring us back just to upgrade the internet. Because we were like, look, these are our requirements, and for them to hit it, they have to make upgrades to the facility.
Wow, that's crazy. So
yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, this is an experience, but it's a high risk proposition. You know, the production on this event was a little bit over around 3.2 million, I think was the number. And that's not production; that's food, production, speakers, entertainment, all of that. And so you're spending, you know, a couple $1 million. You have a fixed cost that's not variable, and so you've got to get above 3.2 just to, or whatever that number is, to basically break even. And then you have your variable cost, which is food and bev, which is on top of that. So it is a pretty intense P&L, and that's why a lot of the sensitivities about like in putting this business together is like everybody sort of rallying to get as many sort of paid tickets and paid advertising and paid sponsorships to make that P&L work. Because like if we don't, we're still out $3 million. So
let's talk about speakers real quick, because Paul's got some. He scrolled past Brad Jacobs and Alex Epstein here. Like, how do you think about getting speakers? Like, how do you think about getting speakers?
I mean, look, it's usually networks of people. So a lot of it has to do with sort of your personal credibility and the credibility of the event itself. And I talked to a lot of event producers or would-be event producers that are asking, how do I get these speakers to come? And so there's a couple of thresholds for that. One is, if you have a high quality audience with decision makers that are their customers in a B2B world, they're going to spend money. If you can get the audience right, then people will, you know, you can get the right speakers. But it is hard because you want, oftentimes you have to have the keynote speakers before you get the audience, particularly if you're cold launching an event. And so it takes a long time to build up that momentum. You know, Brad was a personal favor to me. He and I are friends. I've known Brad for a couple of years, and I basically texted him and said, "Hey, would you do this?" And he's like, "Yeah." So like, it works out. You get other speakers that are paid speakers, typically from outside the industry. You know, Alex Epstein was one that you showed. Michio Kaku. We've had a number of sort of high-end authors, and you're going to pay to get those folks there. And that, you know, your speaker fees can range from, on the low end, $5,000 for not a huge name brand, to the high end, you could be talking $200,000. And so just depends on the sort of level of celebrity and frankly, whether they want to do it at all.
Yeah, they probably should want to at least do it, because then otherwise, I don't know, talk itself is going to be maybe that interesting. But have you seen a difference? Like, just trying to get somebody to, or do you guys not even focus on somebody who doesn't want to come to the conference? You just don't even put the time into it.
You make an offer. It's just like, it's almost like a letter of intent, or I think of it as if I was going to hire you as an employee, I give you a sort of offer letter. That's typically how it works, is you send an offer letter out, and then they will make a decision on whether they like the content. Obviously, you know, they want something that's brand safe. Like, they don't want to go to an event that's going to, you know, like an adult film event is not appropriate for a lot of authors, as an example, or someone in the tobacco industry or the, you know, the gun industry. They're, you know, that may or may not be brand safe for them. And so they're going to look at the content. And then it also may be, even though it may be brand safe, and we're a pretty brand safe event, like there isn't controversy for sort of public speakers to come here. But you end up in situations where, like, hey, this isn't that interesting of a topic, and it's just not worth their time. So we tried to get Sheryl Sandberg a couple of years back, and she turned it down predominantly because it just didn't fit what she didn't want to prioritize it, regardless of price. And so you end up in situations like that where you just get people who, you know, probably your batting average maybe 20%. Schedule matters too. Sometimes you get people like we reached out to Nick Saban. He's obviously not going to show up in the fall. We tried to get him in at one of our summer events. The problem was like scheduling. I think he was in Europe, where he owns a house in Italy or something. And so we couldn't get him. So schedule's also important, or they may be preoccupied. So those are sort of considerations. But typically what we do is we start sourcing speakers. It takes about 6 months to plan an event. And what you need to do is sort of, okay, this is the content we're going to cover, and these are the speakers we're going to go after. And you try to focus on your big keynotes first and foremost. So those are the ones you commit to early on, because those are your headline acts. To think of it as like putting on a musical concert is, if I'm going to drive people to go to the concert, I mean, it's different going to a local bar where somebody who's unknown is going to play. Like, nobody's going to show up for that versus, hey, I want to get Taylor Swift to my venue, or I want to get, whatever band to my venue. You're going to have to do that pretty early on. You're going to have to budget it. And if you were able to secure Taylor Swift, which is probably impossible, that people are going to show up. And that's sort of how we look at speakers the same way.
Is there like a speaker, like who in your mind, who is in the freight world or closely adjacent to it, is like, if I could get this person, that would be the best?
Yeah, Fred Smith is my goal. So we're talking about potentially putting on an event in Memphis. And so we've been in discussions about having Fred Smith. He's sort of a personal hero to me. He's the founder of FedEx. And so I think Fred Smith would be sort of an icon, would be a huge win for us. That to me is sort of the prize is having Fred Smith on stage and being able to interview Fred Smith. But there's so many people, and like, it's not just CEOs. One of the things I find amazing, and you guys probably can appreciate this, is you meet people who may not have this sort of, they may be up and coming entrepreneurs, or, they may be operators in the business, and they just have this real solid energy about them. And you're like, man, that was a great interview. I had very low expectations coming into that. I've also seen very, one of the interesting things about interviewing people from big companies is that they tend to be very guarded. And we had Ramona Hood, I think, is a great example, from FedEx Custom Critical. She's the CEO of FedEx Custom Critical. And, because FedEx is such a big company and it's consumer facing, you're very sensitive about what they'll say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was very cautious because I was expecting the PR department to want approval of all the questions, and expected Ramona to be pretty guarded in the conversation. She was exactly the opposite. She was high energy. She was engaging. She was very open about having conversations. I found that to be one of my favorite talks the entire time, because it was surprising for me coming in there, knowing that you have a big corporate executive of a big public company. And I found her incredibly warm and engaging and open about their strategies, the challenges that the business has, but also the opportunities. And that, frankly, surprised me. I have interviewed plenty of corporate executives, and I would say most of the time, if it's a big public brand and a big public company, those conversations are pretty challenging, because they won't, they stick to very specific talking points and they won't go off script. So it's always refreshing when you get someone who does go off script, because you're like, hey, they're actually bringing it.
Yeah, that's really what you want. I mean, you'd probably rather somebody who's slightly lower status but is entertaining versus somebody top dog who just has their talking points and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, look, having a big name person is going to drive. I mean, look at Brad Jacobs. I mean, Brad Jacobs is the GOAT. And the reason I say that is one, he's built $7 billion companies. He went completely open mic. Like, it was his idea to do open mic. Any question about anything. I mean, he did this once before at our event. It was great in Atlanta. So I knew that he could do it. And he did it again, and completely just like riffed with the audience. I mean, you got the chance to ask him a question, Reed. Like, you were asking him about, he was confused whether you asked him about gongs or bongs, and he was okay. Like, he was chill about it. And he then walked the audience. So Brad Jacobs is amazing because he is a big corporate. He's a big name. People will show up to hear him speak because of his experience. He's incredibly engaging and warm, and he's unscripted. And so that's like the GOAT. Not only his business experience, but also just as a human. And he had a great time. So it's just fun when that works together, that combination. That's why one of the reasons I think Brad is such a hit, because it was so unexpected for so many people.
Yeah, well, I don't. I kind of pushed back on him a little bit when I asked him how he celebrated. He's like, oh, I don't really. I'm like, come on, man. Like you must have bought a G-Wagon one time. Like come on.
Yeah, like I think he's an interesting guy. He tells you what he thinks and doesn't have a problem telling you that. So, but you know, I'm sure the freight gong thing, he probably doesn't have a gong in his office. I don't see him like going to virtual gonging. No offense, Reed, but dude, the guy can stand in the fire and dish it out as well as he can take it. And I think that's what made him incredibly engaging.
It was super refreshing that he was not uptight.
No, and you look at Brad, and before I met him, and I'm like, here's a guy in a suit. We're a public company, is, you know, at his core is from finance. Like that is Brad's sort of like, he understands how to operate businesses for sure. He's got a vision for these businesses, but his superpower is he understands finance probably better than anybody in the industry. And so you have this sort of like expectation of what he's going to be like, and you meet him and you're like, he is so different than what you expect. and you don't see that until he's on stage, but he's like that in real life. He's incredibly engaging and warm, and it's cool. Like I have an enormous amount of respect for him. And he's a very sincere guy too. So this is not a fake persona that he's put on. He's a very sincere person. So we're certainly fortunate. One of the other moments that I really enjoyed was Kendra Tucker's discussion with Truck Stop. And it's interesting because load board fraud is obviously a topic that impacts her business, but they also have a lot of sort of power over how that does or does not take place. And I have seen situations where companies have sort of not wanted to be very direct about it, have sort of shied away from it. And I thought Kendra did an amazing job being very open about it. She actually brought it up well before I ever did, sort of hit it heads on. And even when asked a difficult question, or a question that was very pointed about DAT, she didn't say anything.
But she gave you a face.
She made it very clear that she has strong opinions. And of course, she set me up to sort of like, I had to take, because I don't have the same issue that she has. It's like better. She threw it right back at me, and I was not expecting.
Well, dude, well, you know what though? It's like that as an interviewer, you like had an opportunity there and you took it. But I feel like at a lot of maybe other conferences in this industry, they wouldn't. I don't think people would have done that. Like, I don't think. Like, I've watched a lot of interviews, and it just seems like a lot of softballs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just slow pitch. Like, and you threw something at her that was pointed.
Everyone's afraid to offend. I mean, freight media before this sort of revolution of the creative economy. And look, at the end of the day, FreightWaves is certainly a professional news organization or media organization as any is, but we have an edge to us, and we're sort of born out of the creator generation, right? We're from this business. You guys are even, I call it, more unhinged and I mean that in a great way. Like, we're creating this energy that in this industry has never seen before. But you go through traditional media and they just don't understand what's actually happening. They never have. They're afraid to offend. Go to a TPM conference with the JOC. When was the last time that they held the container lines accountable for some of the egregious actions or some of the inefficiencies? When was the last time they sat in front of the CEO of Maersk and really hammered them? They won't do it because they need them to show up. That's what makes the conference work. That's who sponsors the events. They won't do it, and they're afraid to do it. One of the things that I'm not afraid to, and our organization is not afraid to, is to actually ask the tough questions and frankly stand in the fire. And we're okay receiving it, but we're also okay putting it out there. And yes, we care deeply about our friends in the industry, and we care deeply about the success of the industry. But a lot of times, there's all these questions about what happens in the industry and who's pulling the strings and who's in charge and who's doing all this stuff. This is an important, media provides an opportunity for us to ask those questions and to frankly answer them. And I hope at F3, but also through our media, that we get the opportunity to do it. And you guys are doing the same thing. I mean, you're asking questions, you're probing, you're bringing topics to to bear. And I think as an industry, we're much more successful because of it.
Paul, do you want to try to say anything?
Yeah, hopefully I don't know, the audio works here. I'm at a Starbucks in Jewel off, so
We can hear them like mixing the
making
drink.
the drinks. Yeah, I know. I was on mute. I mean, I love the event. The one with Brad Jacobs. We actually wrote a tweet about like kind of summarizing, recapping what it was like on Wednesday, which I thought, like, honestly, like that was like my favorite freight day I've had. Just being honest, because like from the in the morning we had the Brad Jacobs Q&A, which was the coolest event I've ever sat at a freight conference. We already talked about that. It was kind of funny because Michael Lombard is upset that he didn't ask Brad Jacobs on his opinion.
We'll have Brad come back and he can have that opportunity. So
yeah, we need to get Brad back. But that was amazing. Reed's live demo, the FreightCon demo, was the most
of course, this is when he cuts out, when he starts
talking about it. Probably the sales team is like, hey, we have to cut out.
Yeah. The worst in show. You guys should have given me the worst in show.
Hey, that should be an award. Like, we should see who has the most ridiculous demo out there.
I'm down.
That will actually be a good competition because
I think it's worth having that conversation whether we should do that. So
what, Paul, do you want to keep
what was
going?
really special? Yeah, what was really special about, I think, the event also was Chattanooga. Like the hospitality that you experience is like unbelievable. I love the people in Chattanooga. I think it's a remarkable city. Great people around, and it's not even that big of a city, so it's kind of like it has like a cozy like environment. And we went on a hike with Matt McClelland, Sadiq, and Christian. We saw like the views of Chattanooga, and then we went back to the Amazon Freedom event at the aquarium, which was amazing. So overall, yeah, it was remarkable. I just wanted to kind of touch on that real quick to show everyone that's just watching.
It was my third time.
Really cool.
It was my third time in Chattanooga, and before I think it was Paul's as well. And before we just never got the chance to go on a hike until this time. And man, the views from I forgot what the mountain that or the
Lookout Mountain.
Yeah, they were incredible. I mean, not only was the hike awesome and very refreshing, especially after during the conference, which is something I never did before, but when you get to the top, the views were just breathtaking, and highly recommend if anybody's ever passing through Chattanooga, you have to check it out because there's very few places like with those kinds of views.
Craig, I'm curious with this tweet right here. Is this for real?
It is for real. Hell yeah, it's for real. So here's, awesome. This goes back to, and I sort of shared some context last night on Twitter, is like there's been this like ongoing beef between the Journal of Commerce and FreightWaves that's just popped up. And anytime we have a moment in the sun, Eric Johnson loses his mind and gets triggered and he starts shit posting about anybody associated with us. And so he sort of like goes off. And so he posted something yesterday about that the logistics industry is serious people and you can't meme yourself to prosperity. And the initial thought that we all had, because again, I was sort of coming out of my nap when I saw this and I saw Dooner's post, was that he was actually coming after you guys. He's like throwing shade at you, Reed, and Freight Caviar. And so initially that was my assumption. I actually did not realize that he was actually talking about Truck Stop. And so I'm like, dude, why are we so uptight as an industry? Like, why can't we have some fun? Because everybody I've met, this is a stressful business. It's a thankless business oftentimes. We all make fun of ourselves. We don't take ourselves pretty serious. Your success, you guys are far more in the like meme sphere than FreightWaves will ever be. It's just not our style of content. Dooner does a great job with it, but like it's a different kind of content. And it's a creator kind of content. And it was an interesting contrast because when we were talking, Paul, Reed and I were walking, Christian we were walking back from the Amazon party to the to the street party that we had, and we had a chance to sort of just talk about, you know, what was happening and your business and what you guys were up to, and we were just it was sort of like a really interesting sort of moment and a meaningful moment for me, because I loved having the Please Advise folks there, because there's this massive amount of energy that they bring.
It would
They're
have
not
really
buying
been dry.
software services, so they don't fit the typical sort of profile of the folks that are going to come buy software services, but they are the pulse of this industry, and they bring a lot of energy and excitement to it. And it was just funny because you have this, you know, you have the Journal of Commerce, who's always believed that FreightWaves was an illegitimate media business, that we don't deserve to be here, that they get to set the rules. That is their top-down mentality, and always been. Look at what they write about me. Look at what they write about the other about our media, and they have this sort of rules of how they think it should work. And you'll see them shitpost constantly about how we don't adhere to those rules, and they've done this for years. But what they've missed is what's actually happening around media is it's disrupting, and that's why their audience continues to turn out, because it's just boring, and it's not authentic content. And so when I saw this, I was like, let's create more energy, man. Let's bring the industry back into this event. And if we don't sell another ticket next year, then so be it. I know we will. I mean, the business model will work. And I've told you this, Reed, is the more people that show up, the higher the energy is. There's a lot of FOMO that's built into that. So this is not a reckless business strategy. But the more people across this creator economy, whether they're entrepreneurs or business owners or drivers or whatever, the more folks that we can bring to an event like this, and the more access they can get, I think the more exciting. And frankly, creators are going to bring the energy. They have the opinions. They're excited about it. They're into it. They're engaged. And if we can democratize it in a way that like makes sure that energy is located at F3, then I think that's an enormous win for everybody inside the event.
I mean, you
It'd be
guys.
great if go ahead, Reed.
Sorry, Christian. I mean, I thought for obviously we've talked a lot, and it's I just was reflecting on why would you want like clown? I mean, not like clowns in the nicest way possible, right?
I mean, that is
like,
a self-effacing thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we literally just like Lombard tweeting up like about Napoleon at Brad Jacobs, like it's like, but I've been thinking about this, and it's like, well, it like our crew is basically just a proxy. Like you're just outsourcing this, like finding interesting, funny, like energetic people to us, essentially.
Well, it's in some ways it is self-selecting, right? Like you got to participate in the conversation. You got to be a part of it. You can't freeload into the conversation in some ways, right? So like it in many ways does create sort of a, like, you can't just show up. You got to have some level of energy to be a part of it. And that's the folks that have joined your Discord channel. That's the folks that have joined this movement that you've created, which I think is a real powerful movement in our industry. And I have an enormous amount of respect for what you've done. It's because you took this meme and you created an entire movement around it. And I thought it was awesome that you were on stage doing the virtual gong. I didn't get to see the demo live. I got to see the video afterwards.
Oh, no.
I had a meeting, unfortunately. I know I have to do real work sometimes. But I didn't get to see it.
Craig was running backstage to make sure they took me off the voting for best in show.
I didn't do that. I don't know the logic behind it. I imagine the reason they did it is because they didn't think it was fair to some of the the real companies that were up there versus the Frit Gong. They spent a lot of energy, but I did think it brought some new energy to it. It was lighthearted. I think you did a great job of and I actually enjoyed how you pitched your other real business at a time when you were sort of like, that is the brilliance of what you've done, is you've leaned into this sort of sarcastic please advise thing, and you created a movement out of it, but it's helping create this sort of personal brand that you're able to, and social proof that you're able to lean into your business. I just think it's brilliant, and I have an enormous amount of respect for founders that are doing the hard work. And I don't know, like I get the opportunity to invite them to our ecosystem. If I cared about every dollar we made, like the people that accuse us about like maximizing profit or doing things like just out for ourselves, just clearly don't understand how I run my business. If I cared about every dollar we made, then we would charge everybody door on everything. We would put subscription on our content because we know there are people that will pay for it. If that's all we cared about was money, then we would operate the business completely different. And it's just, I have the opportunity because we have a successful business to be able to do things that I think are cool. Like hanging out with cool people, bringing energy, like creating a meme environment across Twitter. I just think it's cool. And if it drives the Journal of Commerce and EJ crazy, that's a nice bonus for me.
Oh God!
I
hope it triggers him. I hope he gets so triggered every time he sees a freight meme. I hope he has to block it just because it will drive him so crazy.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Well, hey, when I go on his podcast, we'll talk about memes, and I'm sure that you can get some.
Look, it was a dumb. First of all, it was a dumb thing. Like, why care?
Well, Pete, I mean, I don't know if you saw that Matt Silver commented on it and basically was like, "Oh, I like what Reed's doing." Basically, just assuming that's who he was talking about.
We all assumed it. That was immediately what I thought.
I thought it too. I'm like. I don't have any personal beef with him per se. I don't have the history you do, and I've met him once, and that's fine. But I just was like, bro, like, what the fuck? Like,
well, it's funny because like in one of his tweets after that, he talked about how his follower account has not increased, and it's like, well, dude, all you do is negative. It's negative, and it's whiny, and it's passive aggressive, and it's like at some point, yes, there are people that enjoy seeing those things, but like at some point. If you look at the creator economy going across freight, and you look at the people that are on this call right now, on this video call, and you look at the other folks, Lombard is a great example of that. Like Chris, like they're bringing something to it. Now they can ship post and they can throw shade and they can challenge stories and narratives in this industry and put stuff out there, but it's not all about that. And they're not attacking. They're not like they're bringing in topics that are important, and it's not just one track. Like I have strong opinions about a lot of topics, but I think 90% of my content is meant to be positive and reinforce the value of this industry. Occasionally, I can get ahead of myself and put something that isn't that. And I do stand my ground and feel like. After, and a lot of times it's after a lot of heat I've taken where I'll come back and respond to some of that criticism, but I try to have my facts and I try to keep it as positive as possible. And I think what we're seeing is the growth of the accounts, the people who are actually doing something interesting, the ones that are actually creating momentum for themselves and their businesses are the ones that actually do that. They bring something into the community. And if all you do is complain and whine about other people, who wants to hear that all day long? Yeah. Like it's nonsense.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're not serious people, man.
Well, that's
just stupid.
That's been my impression from the very beginning since I started in this industry in 2016. I was like, first of all, when you actually work in like one of these roles, like on the ground, like you're in operations at a brokerage, you're in sales at a brokerage, you're a driver, you work at a warehouse, like the shit rolls downhill and hits you so hard every single fucking day. And every day is just a grind and the grass is always greener. The turnover across the industry in that sort of sphere of jobs is so high because it's just hard and it's stressful and you get blamed for things you have no control over every single day. And that's just part of the job. You have to deal with that. And humor and being lighthearted and being sarcastic, frankly, is like the only way that I could get through it, really. And at the same time, that's the reality. And everybody, I don't think anybody would disagree with that statement. Even executives like who have been in this, like they like, but at the same time, you have that. And then you have the media and you have the marketing that a lot of companies do. And you have a lot of the branding that companies do. And they try to make it seem like it's fucking rocket science, what we're doing. when the reality is that all their sales reps are literally just being yelled at all day by drivers or by customers, right? And then for the carriers, they're getting screwed over half the time, or not half the time. You know what I'm saying? Like shit happens, and it's just you have this, and then you have that, and it's just like, what the hell? Like, can we be honest with ourselves about the reality of this industry? Like,
it's condescending. It's that, hey, we're supposed to keep this academic and elites and not have personalities, and we're not supposed to embrace the sort of groundswell that is and have conversations. It comes across as condescending. It comes across as elitist, and it is, and it isn't reflective of the energy. Could you imagine Lombard at a JOC TPM conference? Like no, like, or G-Face's video playing in front of the whole audience. Like, was
that your idea? Was that your idea?
It was my idea, of course, because I thought it was a great video. First of all, I was dying laughing when he posted it, and I was like, look, but what it was it tells a bigger story. It tells a story around a real serious issue, but it is a way that people understand it. I mean, one of the reasons I think Freight Caviar has been so successful, I mean, first of all, let's just be frank here. Your name is MILF. Man, I love freight. Like, that's pretty unserious as far as I'm concerned. And the reason I think have been super successful is because you have created a really light, easy way to digest information that talks in the way that people want to receive information. It's the Morning Brew style of a newsletter. And I think that reaches an audience. It's different than what we do, and you do it in a way that I think really democratizes the information, and it doesn't come across as condescending or elitist. And I think that's the mistake traditional media has made, and this is not just true of freight media, but a lot of traditional media outlets, is they want to talk over the head and tell you what to think. We are the deciders of what's important, and you should think this. And that is the problem. When you condescend and you run over your audience, you're going to lose interest when there are competitive products out there that don't do that treat the audience with a level of respect and engagement, and talk to them in the way they want to be taught to. And I think that is the mistake. And for me to be able to embrace the movement that's happening, that I love having drivers there, like the backbone of our industry. And this is not, you know, a lot of times you hear that executives say that and it's a little bit condescending because they actually don't mean it. I loved having them there. I was honored to be able to spend time with the folks that came, the folks that you were able to bring read, because these are the real folks doing the work, and they were able to get to sort of cross into a world that they're normally not. They're participating in an executive level conversation, and they were hearing the things that oftentimes to them feel inaccessible, and they were sharing ideas. One of the best conversations I had, and you've got it pulled up here on screen, is Lombard's conversation. Was he and I got a chance, we were sitting at the bar waiting for a drink, and he was telling me about his grandfather's trucking company, and I was like, dude, I had no idea. And that is so cool. We have something in common. We come from multi-generational truckers, and you're sharing the history of the industry. This industry means something to you. It's not a job. And I just think there's such power in all of that. And that's the important thing that we in an industry have to do more of. And so I just feel passionate about these topics. I love seeing folks show up that bring it and love it and are here. And I think it's a great way to sort of bring in different walks of life and people with different experiences and embrace it. And so if we have 15,000 memers that show up next year to F3 and it breaks the bank, so be it. I'll go out with style. It will be the greatest bankruptcy in history because we had all the freight memers show up at our event. But you know what? That's not going to happen, because if I get 15,000 people to show up, we'll figure out how to make some money with that. There's plenty of folks that will sponsor that. I'm just saying, I am committed to making this happen. Let's just meme ourselves to the greatest freight party in history.
Yeah, well, that's
I like that plan.
Very
I love it.
We'll have to come up with a way to I'll think about this. We'll need a way to aggregate the content too. I mean, I guess we could do like a hashtag, but
we did a hashtag. So Don Eberhardt from Freightvana suggested it. This is why he is tied for the number 26 place inside the Freight Tech, because he has such great ideas. And it's why I'm optimistic he'll continue to be 26 this next year. Is he coming up with a tag. So F3 memes is what he came. I think his was F3 memes contest or something. And we've narrowed it down to F3 memes. And so just use that as a tag. Keeps it short and sweet, and then we all know where to go find them. So look, I think it'll be cool. Like I said, if we get thousands of people to show up and we have a raging experience, Reed, you're going to give the Meme of the Year award. We'll have a banquet dinner for the Meme of the Year, and you can give out an award. We'll let you decide however you want to do that.
Well, the problem with this is that my initial tweet yesterday was in response to me not being qualified to win the other award, and now I can't. It's not like I can give myself this award either, so I'm screwed.
Are you saying that you want to be considered for the Meme award?
No.
I feel the same way about Sonar not making the Freight Tech 25.
For sure.
I mean, we had competitors that were on there, and we didn't get to make it. In fact, my Sonar team was sort of crying about that. It's like, hey, how is it? We're not on that list. It's like, well, that's the rules, man. So it's just the way it is, and we got to adhere to we have rules, and this is the methodology. But you got to do the same thing. You got to decide whether you want to be a voter.
No, I cannot possibly award myself my own award.
I mean, you could do that. It'd be kind of funny, but sort of lame at the same time.
I mean, why
don't you do a community vote?
Craig, you just need to figure out an award you can give me, please. God damn.
Oh, okay. I will get you a trophy.
Everybody
just
make one.
He gets a
just
trophy.
Make one up.
You're a kid that joined the baseball team just so you could have trophies.
No, I was pretty good. I was pretty good at baseball before my arm started coming out of its socket all the time. I think we can get really creative about this. I think it's a really good idea, and I think that you'll continue to win hearts and minds with this sort of activity. So,
by the way, can I just do a shout out of talking about this whole like memes war that's gone on, or this meme revolution that's going on? Is Truck Stop is the best corporate account in freight, and if you're not following the Truck Stop account, you are missing out on some great content. And look, they're not afraid to bring it. And this is a company that has historically been pretty conservative about sort of bringing these issues, and now they're bringing out a little style. I thought, again, I'm just a huge fan of Kendra and her sort of hitting it. But
did you meet the guy who runs the account?
I did. I don't think we want to dox him.
No, that's fine. But
yeah, dude, like he's legit, right? Like he's got some edge to him, and I think that's what this industry needs. Less serious people, or more serious.
I agree, and they're winning hearts and minds doing this. And I told him that.
Like, let's just be honest, man. The freight bro thing is real. Truck drivers deal, like you talk about it. It's a real difficult business, but if you're actually covering the freight industry and you think that it's just full of serious people, you know nothing about your audience. Nothing. Because the people that I've met, now maybe when you go to TPM, it's all serious people in ties that will listen to you be lectured about some academic theory on ocean shipping. But when you're talking about the real substance of this industry, the real action, it's people like Reed, it's people like you, it's people like Christian, it's people like Paul, it's people like me that actually have opinions, make fun of this whole thing. That gong, I mean, the fact that the gong matters, that is not a serious instrument.
Dude, I think our server is crap. Oh no, it's
2 million times, man.
2 million times.
Love it. We need to give a gong award.
The server is literally overtaxed because people are spamming it. Look, it's not even loading. So we need
to cloud. Dude, like it's probably the same firm that does DAT's infrastructure. That's
the day before Reed went on stage. We were sitting, it was like late at night, we were sitting and we all pulled it up and he said, guys, I added this leaderboard, and we're all sitting there. Everybody takes out their phones, and I swear 30 or 45 minutes, everybody is just clicking. And it became this like competitive feeling, like who's actually going to be at the top of the leaderboard tomorrow? And all of a sudden, like other people are actually that are not on the roof with us are starting to show up. I think Dynamo Freight was there. I was like, wow, this is crazy that this is actually working, and it's like kind of becoming viral.
I just
So-
love how like Reed, how like you have these instincts about like how to like create these really interesting sort of like weird but eccentric sort of takes on the business, but increase engagement. I just think it's so cool.
I have to give credit to Jake for the leaderboard, because I built the initial I built the initial site with the counter and all that stuff. But then Jake came in and polished it and made it actually work, because the way I had built the counter was, and this is the good thing, like I know enough code to be dangerous, like both to myself and others. And I really like trying to make things go viral. And I like just like spinning up stuff. I made this in 30 minutes. And then Jake came in, made the carousel and the leaderboard, and now it's like, everyone knows about it. So it's
cool.
Well, it's just fun, and it's, I sold some sponsor slots, so I made some money, and next time, like, we're just gonna keep turning it up. Like, it's not gonna stop.
There was a guy years ago when the internet first came out that sold. I don't know. Did you ever see this where he sold like made $1 million business by selling like a pixel?
Yes.
$1
Yep.
pixel.
Yep.
And he ended up. It was $1 million business, and you could create a logo and you could buy pixels, and he had logos all around it, and he was able to get $1 million in advertising just through that. So this could be the next $1 million pixel thing.
That would be fine with me. I'd be okay with that.
Hey, look, I mean, this is a disruptive technology that's in every freight floor.
Dude, I don't know if you caught it, but I literally word for word, when you DM'd me for the first time about doing this, and you said like, this is a technology in every office, like we've achieved unlimited scale. I used that word for word in my speech.
I didn't remember that you and I had that. I remember you and I had the conversation. I didn't remember what I said in that, but I thought the speech sounded awesome. I was moved by your I would have voted for you, but the voting, you were disqualified for voting.
Next time.
There's no hard feelings about that.
If you actually paid Reed to actually be a part of it, then you wouldn't have been disqualified. But I don't know that cloud gonging at this point in time is lucrative enough to pay for a demo spot.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Maybe if the pixel art version of the Freight Gong takes off, who knows? We'll see.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Well,
guys, I appreciate you having me.
Greg, thanks so much.
I love what you're doing. I love how you guys are sort of bringing some energy to the space, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Like we're friends in this. Like we're friends in this world. It's what I meant yesterday. It's funny because I don't think Reed, you or Paul were there. I don't think you guys were there. We actually had a conversation. We had Alex from Mother. Man, no, that was yesterday.
That was yesterday. Yeah, we had to leave in the morning. We dropped off Reed at the airport in Nashville.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we didn't make it.
So what was cool about that is we had Dooner and Alex from Mother Trucker on stage, and we started talking about you guys actually, and others that are in this sort of, Blythe is doing what she's done. You got the bootstrappers. You have all this stuff that's happening in sort of these individual creative economy inside of freight, and it's awesome, and it's not a zero-sum game. And that's the thing that has driven me nuts about this beef with the Journal of Commerce, is that like it is not a zero-sum game. Like it never has been, and it shouldn't have been that way. And so I think what you guys are doing and so many others is making this industry cool. It's bringing a lot of awareness to topics. It's a way to blow off steam, because it can be highly stressful, particularly in this real sort of down market. And it just shows a level of community. And I just think it's like, and I told you guys this in Chattanooga, is like, I'm rooting for you. Like I want you to do more and scale it up. So, and we'll continue to support that.
Bullish.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Craig.
I love the hospitality from Chattanooga, Craig, and it means a lot to us. So
I will. I'll tell the town. So we're gonna do it again next year, guys. So
Awesome.
Appreciate you coming. See you.
Thanks for coming on, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
That was great.
Why did Paul leave?
I don't know.
Dude, why like figure your internet out, bro?
Dude, I don't know what's going on with him, but that was
Dude,
that was good. I mean, we are up at an hour anyway, so
bro, that was like
that was
Hey.
good.
Yeah. That
any
was
closing thoughts.
Yo,
Honestly,
I did want to give a shout out to Ted Ailing real quick. I know I showed the
Yeah,
tweet.
for sure.
Like Ted showed us. This was Tuesday morning. It was funny because on Monday at the Repower event, Ted was there because Dynamo Ventures, where he's I think the founder and partner at. He was like, 9 a.m. Meet us at the Westin, right? And so we go to the Westin at 9 a.m. and we get into his bus RV, and he showed us around like Chattanooga, the preparatory school that he founded, Prep Chattanooga right here. And then he showed us took us to Dynamo Ventures Brickyard. It was awesome. It was amazing. And we'll have a video out soon, kind of showing what we saw and all that. What else would you guys want to add?
that trip, that entire tour that Ted gave us was first and foremost unexpected. Every part of it was basically a surprise. We stopped at like you said, Brickyard as well, but the prep school was just so it was very inspiring. Like what Ted is doing there, and how he has made his wealth, and now he's like actually reinvesting that, getting a lot of other money to come into Chattanooga and help the less fortunate. And both Ted and his wife Kelly, I mean, big props to them, what they were doing. Both Paul and I, Reed, you'd think the same too, but we were talking, and it was something that will remain with us for a long period of time, kind of as
For
an
sure.
inspiration. But besides that, afterwards, he took us to Brickyard. There's a amazing setup. Brickyard's a VC. They built a WeWork style for their portfolio companies. They had a sauna and they had a cold plunge in there. When me and Paul saw that, we were like, "That this is like awesome, amazing." So it became definitely more tempting to go down to Chattanooga more often. So
Bro,
they did good on that.
we're gonna build our own thing, and we'll put something like that in there.
We should blend.
We
Eventually.
need a cold plunge
That's what-
sauna. That's what we need, and a workout center.
We
Yeah.
Reed, we have to combine the sauna and the cold plunge with that picture of the two chairs under the bridge for the Freight Chat Tech headquarters.
All right,
That's where
cool. I'll get on Canva after this and spin up something. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, it was a great trip. I'm happy to be home. My wife. Shout out Megan, my wife, for holding down the fort.
Strong slow Sergey.
Yeah, she's a beast. But yeah, I don't know, man. This was awesome.
This was great.
Yeah, this was amazing. I'll get this put out on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. This is great.
Fuck yeah.
Sweet.
All right, guys.
Awesome, guys. All right. See you guys
Peace.
next week.
All right. See you next week.
Peace.
Later.